Welcome to the Star Your Thoughts video. Today we are going to be talking about how to study, scrutinize, test, and restructure our thoughts. So this is really helpful when you are having a moment of overthinking or overanalyzing, and you want to really take that thought and you want to study it, you want to scrutinize it, you want to test your theories. Is this a rational thought? Am I having an imposter syndrome moment that I can work through, or is this something that I actually need to dig into further? And then once we get to a more objective thought or some more objective alternatives, we really want to restructure our thoughts. And so what we want to use is it's what's called Socratic questioning. And as you might have guessed, it's attributed to Socrates because it is a way of moving forward our dialogue and our thought process to ask questions that encourage reflection. They bring awareness to other perspectives, to different information that we may not have been thinking about or we may not have considered. So, this is a way to deep dive and be objective with your thoughts. If you have gone through any of my other workshops, you may be familiar with some of the other tools that I use for overthinking and imposter syndrome that are really quick ways to get out of that in the moment. This particular tool is helpful when you really want to dig in and you want to take 20 minutes to figure out where this thought is coming from and to start to change the way that you are thinking about some of these things. So we'll get to that in the restructuring piece, but this is not just a way to ignore a thought or get away from it in the moment. This is when you have the time to start digging in and changing the way that you're thinking. So this is a printout here, but again, it's pretty thorough. This is something that I would recommend taking 20 minutes to do when you are on your own. You really want to sit and think and journal about this. Or you could potentially give these sheets to someone else and have them ask you the questions if you're more of a verbal processor. So you simply start by writing down the thought to be questioned. Again, this could be an imposter syndrome thought or another challenging thought. And then you want to answer all the questions the sheet will walk you through it, but there's a lot of different questions to really get you to start thinking about alternatives, because the R, again, is for restructuring, and cognitive restructuring is a process of learning to identify and dispute irrational thoughts. These are known as cognitive distortions, which again we spend a lot more time in going over in Next Level You, but let's look at how this helps us. So our brains are meaning makers. And since we don't always have all the information, it has to make guesses about what's true and what's not true. As an example, have you ever seen a face in an inanimate object? Maybe you see the Virgin Mary on a piece of toast, or you see a tree that's smiling at you. Not only does our brain see the faces, it also assigns emotions to it. So it's a happy tree that is smiling at me. Instead of just our brain saying, oh, that's not actually a face, we even take it a step further. So again, our brains are always looking for patterns to really make sense of things around us. So the first thing that we want to do is just become aware. Notice your automatic thoughts. Automatic thoughts are totally normal. We all have them. It's our default. It's the interpretation of what happens to us. And it's that, again, automatic first thought. They're almost always spontaneous, meaning we're not taking time to generate that thought. It just happens. Sometimes it's words, sometimes it's an image or even a memory. So most of the time we don't even notice them. And so if we really want to understand what's happening, we need to build up our muscle of becoming aware of these moments when we're having these automatic thoughts and then start examining them. So let's say, for example, you are driving and somebody cuts you off. Your first thought might be, oh my God, what a jerk. Or if you see an email from your boss late at night, your automatic thought might be, oh no, what's wrong? What did I do wrong? I must have forgotten to do something. I'm about to get in trouble. Or maybe seeing an image of the Twin Towers triggers a memory of the feelings that you had on that day. So again, these are just automatic, quick things that happen spontaneously. So after noticing your thought, you then want to notice the emotion that comes up for you. So emotions are generated from our interpretation of what happened. So the type and intensity of the emotion depends almost entirely on the type of thinking that we're engaged in at the moment. So using the example above of the person who cut us off in traffic, if your thought is, what a jerk, you probably feel angry. If your thought is that blankety blank, 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 you're probably feeling something even stronger than anger, maybe even rage. So on the other hand, if your automatic thought was, oh my God, I'm going 70 miles per hour, he almost hit me, I could have died, you're likely experiencing something more like fear or anxiety. And you can be feeling more than one emotion at once. And what we want to do is just identify the one that is feeling the strongest at the moment. And then for each emotion that you identify, you rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. So how do we move forward from just these automatic thoughts into more objective thinking? I'll give you a moment to read this. So we can restructure our thoughts. And this does take practice. But remember, we're being intentional and we're taking these paths in our brain to reinforce those neural pathways towards more objective or more realistic thinking. So what you want to do is generate some alternative thoughts. So if we're sticking with that car example, instead of, oh my God, we were going 70 miles per hour, he almost hit me, you might construct an alternative thought like, wow, that was really scary. He got close to hitting me, but I'm a pretty good driver and I handled that situation well. Or instead of thinking, what a jerk, he almost hit me, you might say, maybe his wife is going into labor, his partner's going into labor, and they're in the back seat and they're on the way to the hospital. In any case, the most important thing is to simply be flexible and come up with alternative interpretations of what happened. Again, you're not necessarily having to say something that is realistic or not. You're just generating alternatives. So this practice creates mental flexibility, which is really important for us to be able to disengage from the negative thinking patterns and the overwhelm of emotions that we will sometimes have. So in addition to just generating those alternative interpretations, we want to notice any obvious errors in our initial thoughts. So if your automatic thought was, I almost died, you might point out to yourself that I almost died might not be very certain. Even if that person had hit you, you could substitute it with something about how you're a good driver, how you have never been hit before, or something that, again, might be a bit more objective and realistic. And if possible, you want to generate at least 2 or 3 alternative thoughts for each overly negative automatic thought that you had. After that, you want to re-rate your emotion. So after generating multiple, hopefully more realistic thoughts, you want to return to your emotion that you identified earlier and reassess their intensity. Almost always we will be feeling, or that emotion will have gone down a bit in intensity. So just us thinking about generating alternative thoughts could take our emotional level down a bit. This final step is really crucial because noticing and then feeling the relief from your negative emotion decreasing is a really important reinforcer of cognitive restructuring. So again, you want to think about alternative thoughts and you want to rate your emotions, generate alternative thoughts, and then re-rate your emotions, because that is letting your brain know that what I did right now by generating alternative thoughts actually did help me control my emotions or maybe generate some different emotions. So we are much more likely to stick with a habit and benefit from this in the long term if we are reinforcing to our brain that what we are doing is helping. And again, this is called cognitive restructuring. And I just went over the re-rate your emotions piece. So some people think that it is just positive thinking, but the goal of cognitive restructuring is not to think more positively, but to think more realistically. Of course, if you are someone who is habitually thinking in an unrealistic negative way, then yes, this will be this will lead to more positive thinking, but it's just a side effect of thinking more realistically. So I want to call out that this is not just about good vibes. It is not just positive thinking. This is something to help us become more realistic with our thoughts. So if you haven't gotten it yet, definitely grab the STAR worksheet when you have time to sit down and you really want to help your brain start changing the way that you think, not just ignoring or trying to get out of a bad emotion or a negative emotion. Thanks for watching.